Damn. Stephen A went in. He's questioning. Basically, this should be Kelsey Mitchell's team, is what it sounds like to him. And other people are starting to say, oh, this needs to be Kelsey Mitchell's team. She should have had a ball at the end of the game. I'm going to be real. I don't care about none of that. This is the Clark show. None of us showed up for Kelsey Mitchell. Let's keep it real. That's why I'll be glad after this season when they go their separate ways, so we don't even have to have this conversation no more. I'll be glad when they go their separate ways. We don't even got to have this conversation no more. Indiana Fever, y'all can keep Kelsey or Caitlin. Pick one. Y'all can't afford both.
Stephen A. Smith has sent the WNBA into a storm. He did not simply question Caitlin Clark. He basically suggested that she is being pushed as a media product and should not control the ball when the game is decided. Imagine the league's biggest name being told she is not even the top option on her own team. The message was not subtle. It was direct, harsh, and strong enough to create serious tension around the Fever. This was no longer a simple discussion about numbers. It sounded like a complete challenge to the Caitlin Clark era before it had even fully taken shape.
No more. Indiana Fever, y'all can keep Kelsey or Caitlin. Pick one. Y'all can't afford both. Let's go our separate ways and do our thing separately. That's kind of where I'm at, bro. Stephen A, bunch of people going in. The ball should be in Kelsey Mitchell hands and all of this stuff. Then the Caitlin Clark off the floor stuff. Man, this is crazy. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. This is the pile on Caitlin Clark moment. Pile on Caitlin Clark. Any negative feeling you had about Caitlin Clark, get it out there and throw it on her now. Get it out there and throw it.
The major argument came when Stephen A. claimed the Indiana Fever should belong to Kelsey Mitchell instead of the young star fans came to watch. He focused on the statistics, arguing that Mitchell is the more efficient scorer, the stronger shooter, and the safer option when pressure is at its highest. In his view, leaving the ball with Clark is not really about making the best basketball decision. He believes it is about following the popularity surrounding her. His point is basically that the coaching staff may be afraid of choosing winning basketball over the player the public wants to see. That argument directly questions Clark's position as the team's leader.
Caitlin Clark, any negative feeling you had about Caitlin Clark, get it out there and throw it on her now. Get it out there and throw it on her now. None of these people had nothing to say. They only highlight when she fails, when she has a blunder. Paige Beckers lost 2 20-point leads in the last 4 games. Nobody said nothing. She's had 6 points versus Connecticut Sun. She had a fourth quarter lead blown last game. They blew a fourth quarter lead versus the Atlanta Dream before that. Nobody will say nothing. Only Caitlin Clark. It's crazy, man. Let's get into what Stephen A had to say. At this point,
But the criticism went beyond basketball. Stephen A. pushed the issue further by saying the 24-year-old star should also respond to the political attention surrounding her name. He argued that she is an adult, understands what is happening, and should help calm the growing cultural arguments around her. At this point, the discussion was no longer about shooting or passing. He was placing the wider social debate connected to the league on her shoulders. For a young player still adjusting to professional basketball, it sounded less like useful guidance and more like a personal attack on her character and her freedom to simply focus on playing.
Said nothing. She's had 6 points versus Connecticut Sun. She had a fourth quarter lead blown last game. They blew a fourth quarter lead versus the Atlanta Dream before that. Nobody will say nothing. Only Caitlin Clark. It's crazy, man. Let's get into what Stephen A had to say. At this point, bro, I'm just ready for Kelsey to get her own team, and Caitlin ain't even got to deal with this. This is wild, man. It's wild.
You can't, as a coach, be giving the ball to Caitlin Clark just because she's Caitlin Clark. Not when you got a Kelsey Mitchell on the floor who is absolutely positively balling for you on a night-in, night-out basis, shooting better from the field, shooting better from three-point range,
The response from Clark supporters and fans has been extremely strong. The suggestion that she gets the ball mainly because she is famous feels insulting when you consider what she has already shown as a passer and scorer. She is among the league leaders in scoring and assists, yet critics are now describing her as a problem. Fans are angry because that argument ignores the constant double teams and physical pressure she faces every night. If Clark is only popular, then why are opposing defenses spending so much time building their entire game plan around stopping her? The attention she receives on the court clearly comes from the threat she creates.
You're not paying attention. Now Caitlin Clark only got the ball because she's popular. She's third in the league in scoring, second in assists, but she only has the ball in her hands because she's popular, and that's why Stephanie White kept it in her. All right, bro. Yeah, this is some bullshit.
I'm looking at Kelsey Mitchell, and I'm like, that young lady needs to have the basketball in her hand.
Well, let her go get her own team. That's fine. That's fine. Go get your own team. Go get your own team.
When it counts most, let her make that damn decision because she seems to know what the hell she's doing.
There ain't going to be no decision. She's just going to shoot. She shoot every time. But I'm not coming at Kelsey. She's balling. But at this point...
Now consider the efficiency argument that Stephen A. keeps emphasizing. He praises Kelsey Mitchell because her shooting numbers are stronger, but that comparison leaves out how those opportunities are created. Mitchell is an excellent one-on-one scorer, but some critics argue that she can hold the ball too much and does not always create for teammates. When she gets the ball, the possession often ends with her shot. Clark, meanwhile, is trying to organize a complicated offense while facing some of the strongest defenders in the league. Saying Mitchell should automatically become the main leader ignores the defensive attention Clark attracts and the opportunities that attention creates for everyone around her.
So basically, Kelsey's team. All right, cool. At the end of the season, pay Kelsey, not Caitlin, and let's go our separate ways. Pay Kelsey, trade Caitlin, and we will never have to talk about this again. We'll never have to talk about it again. They spoke about some of the things that Caitlin Clark is dealing with off the floor. Let's get into that. I can't believe that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Hold on. Let me get into this. Stephen A., you know nothing but a box score checker. You watch no WNBA games. Pushing this is crazy talk. Kelsey should have the ball because she's allegedly the best player on the Fever. Mitchell is great.
The situation in Indiana is becoming increasingly tense, and some analysts are already talking about the possibility of the two sides eventually going separate ways. If players or media members keep presenting the team as a battle for leadership, the chemistry could suffer badly. The argument being made is straightforward. If Mitchell is truly the star some people believe she should be, then build the team around her and allow Clark to move somewhere she feels valued. It is an extreme position, but when one of the biggest voices in sports media is openly saying you should not have the ball late in games, the relationship can quickly become difficult to repair.
Hold on, let me get into this. Stephen A., you know nothing but a box score checker. You watch no WNBA games. Pushing this is crazy talk. Kelsey should have the ball because she's allegedly the best player on the Fever. Mitchell is great ISO scorer, but that's all. She averages only 3 more points while taking more shots and always seeing easy coverage because game plans are made on stopping Caitlin Clark and beating her up every game. Yeah, Kelsey gets 3 more points, but Clark averages 8 assists. Nobody else on that team sets anybody up, especially Kelsey, who was absolutely allergic to passing the ball. Yeah, he went off. She's a great scorer, but she's a black hole with the rock over dribble.
Critics are now accusing Stephen A. Smith of relying too heavily on box scores instead of watching the actual games. They believe he is building an argument around statistics that sounds good on television but does not match what happens on the court. Watching the film shows Clark facing traps, heavy contact, and constant defensive attention, while Mitchell can sometimes find cleaner opportunities because opponents are worried about Clark's ability to shoot from deep. By leaving that defensive pressure out of the discussion, Stephen A. is effectively criticizing Clark for being the player opponents fear most. It becomes a situation where the numbers tell one story while the game itself shows another.
And Commissioner Adam Silver, the NBA, said it best. It's like political theater, or whatever. It's been politicized when it comes to Caitlin Clark. If you're Caitlin Clark, there are contemporaries in the league taking hits because of the narratives and the perceptions that are being put out there that drastically favor you. You gotta help quell that noise.
So now Caitlin Clark has to talk politics. At 24 years old, she has to come out and start talking about politics. This shit is fucking disgusting, man. I'm disgusted with Stephen A., man. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. This Keep Division. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel. Stephen A., I'm fucking disgusted with you.
The anger is not only about basketball. It is also about what many fans see as a double standard. Other rookies and young stars can struggle, lose leads, or have poor performances without receiving the same level of attention. But when Caitlin has a turnover or misses an important free throw, the reaction can become a national discussion. Stephen A. pointed to her turnovers as a reason to question her leadership. What he leaves out is that Clark is also responsible for creating a huge amount of offense for a team that was struggling near the bottom of the league before her arrival. The most offensive part for her supporters is the suggestion that the coaching staff is only giving her minutes because of her popularity. That argument makes it sound as if the Fever care more about attention and ticket sales than actually competing. For any professional athlete, being told that their playing time is not based on performance is a major insult. Caitlin has spent years proving that she works harder than almost everyone around her. Reducing all of that to a popularity contest, especially from someone who admits he does not watch every game, is bound to create anger. Many people now feel that Clark is being targeted because of how quickly her popularity has grown. Anyone who already had doubts about her rise can now point to Stephen A.'s comments as permission to criticize her even harder. They wait for one bad pass, one mistake, or one poor decision and immediately turn it into another attack. It creates an environment where Clark is expected to be nearly perfect while also being asked to deal with major social and political questions. The pressure keeps increasing, and criticism from one of the most recognizable voices in sports media only makes the situation more intense. Then there is the Kelsey Mitchell issue. Mitchell is clearly a talented player and deserves recognition for what she brings. But the idea that she should suddenly become the team's main playmaker is confusing to anyone familiar with her style. She is primarily a scorer rather than a traditional floor general. Trying to force her into a role that does not naturally fit her could damage the Fever's offensive rhythm. The question is not simply which player is better. It is about which player is built to control the offense. Clark plays the point guard role. Mitchell is more naturally a scorer and finisher. Treating those roles as if they are interchangeable misses an important part of basketball. The demand for Clark to speak about politics and social issues is another point where many supporters say the criticism went too far. Why should a 24-year-old basketball player suddenly become responsible for speaking like a politician? Stephen A. argued that she is smart enough to understand the situation and therefore should use her own judgment to take a public position. To many fans, that sounds like a setup. Whatever Clark says, there will be people ready to attack her from the other side. Putting her on the spot during a national discussion can create a situation where she loses no matter what answer she gives. It has little connection to what she is supposed to do on the basketball court. Some people close to the situation believe Clark and Mitchell actually have a good relationship despite attempts by the media to create tension between them. But the question is how long that relationship can remain untouched if major media personalities continue choosing one player over the other. If Mitchell constantly hears that she should be the true leader, she could eventually begin thinking about a situation where she does not have to compete for attention. The irony is that Mitchell's stronger efficiency numbers may partly exist because Clark attracts so much defensive pressure. Remove that pressure and the situation could change for both players. The comparison with other young stars such as Paige Buchers also stands out. When other players struggle, lose a lead, or have a poor scoring night, the conversation often centers on development and improvement. When Clark struggles, critics can treat the same mistake as evidence that her entire career is overrated. That difference in treatment is exactly why her supporters have become so defensive. They believe the standard is different for Clark, and they see Stephen A. as one of the loudest people pushing that message. To them, this is more than normal criticism. It looks like an effort to keep changing the standard until Clark can never satisfy the people judging her. Stephen A.'s frustration with the situation also seems misplaced to many people who follow the league closely. He may say that he does not want to create conflict, but the way he presents the issue can easily produce exactly that result. By making the Fever's success sound like a choice between Clark and Mitchell, he creates a leadership battle that may not actually exist inside the locker room. It becomes a classic box score approach. Look at percentages, ignore the larger impact, and turn the difference into a controversy that attracts attention while potentially hurting the team. Even more surprising is the suggestion that Clark does not understand the pressure and criticism surrounding the WNBA. Stephen A. has met her family and described them positively, yet he is still willing to criticize her publicly for not becoming a political voice. That creates a strange combination of personal respect and professional criticism. His message becomes something close to saying that he likes her personally but believes she is failing as a leader and public figure. That is an enormous expectation to place on any young player. If the Fever followed that advice and reduced Clark's role as their main option, the business impact could also be serious. A large part of the audience is not tuning in simply to watch isolation scoring. They want to see the creative passing, deep shooting, and exciting style Clark brought from Iowa. Removing her from the central role would not only change the basketball product. It could also hurt ratings, attention, sponsorship value, and overall interest around the league. Fans understand that, sponsors understand it, and the league understands it as well. The turnover argument may be the weakest part of the criticism against Clark. High-usage point guards naturally make more mistakes because they handle the ball and make decisions on a huge number of possessions. Some of the greatest players in basketball history have dealt with high turnover totals for exactly that reason. When one player is responsible for creating so much offense, mistakes are unavoidable. But focusing heavily on those mistakes to justify handing the offense to a player who is less focused on creating for others could make the Fever easier to defend. It could turn the team into a more predictable offense instead of solving the actual problem. That is hardly the kind of adjustment many coaches would consider wise without looking at the entire picture. There is now a feeling that the situation could eventually push people toward separate paths. If the public discussion remains this negative, why would Clark want to stay somewhere she constantly feels questioned? She is being described as a generational talent while also being accused of being nothing more than a media creation. The frustration from fans and analysts who actually study the games continues to grow. They are tired of people using basic statistics to control the entire conversation. They want attention returned to what happens during the games, but with major voices continuing to push the idea that Mitchell should lead instead, that may be difficult. To be fair, Mitchell is playing extremely well. She is a talented scorer and deserves credit for her performances. But she is not the player being guarded from one end of the court to the other. She is not always the one facing traps near half-court. The efficiency numbers Stephen A. like so much can partly be connected to the attention Clark receives from opposing defenses. Ignoring the player who creates that pressure while praising the player benefiting from it creates an incomplete argument. The anger from Clark supporters is also about the lack of protection they believe she receives. They are not only talking about officials during games. They are also talking about veteran voices in sports media who could help support a young talent bringing huge attention and money to the league. Instead, they believe some commentators are trying to tear her down and force her to prove herself all over again. Stephen A. saying she needs to improve at 24 can sound dismissive when you consider the amount of pressure she is already handling while continuing to perform professionally. As the season continues, the Mitchell versus Clark discussion could become even louder if the Fever do not start putting together more wins. But a team's record should not be the only way to judge leadership. Leadership also means keeping a team together while dealing with an enormous level of attention. Clark is doing that while being told by one of the biggest voices in sports media that she should not even have the ball when the most important moments arrive. In the end, this is bigger than one basketball team in Indiana. It raises a larger question about how people respond when a new superstar arrives and quickly changes the attention around an entire sport. Stephen A. Smith's rejection of Clark as the true leader reflects a wider debate about whether the basketball world is willing to accept a new era without constantly questioning it. Whether Caitlin chooses to speak about politics or simply continues shooting from deep, one thing is clear. Millions of people are watching, and the anger surrounding this debate is only beginning.